So thank you all for joining us today. We are Type Electives. We're an online design school, trying to shape the future of type. We're co-founded by Lin Yun, my co-director, and myself, Juan Villanueva. We offer courses that go beyond traditional type design education, covering topics such as involved in letter forms like type design, lettering, and creative technology. And we like to say that our faculty is made up of people who approach their practice with respect, responsibility, criticality, and love. And we are excited to work with students who are eager to participate in a future that's built on those principles. Today is the second lecture of our series where we're talking about supporting linguistic diversity through type design. These are the 4 events that we're doing this season. Last week, we talked with David Jonathan Ross about extended language support. Today, we'll be talking with Tiha about drawing Vietnamese diacritics. And in the upcoming weeks, we'll be talking about drawing extended Latin with Alexandra Samolenkova. And then designing for type for American Indigenous languages with Manuel Lopez Rocha. So each session will include a short presentation, sort of like to set the foundations for the topic, and then we'll join in conversation with Lynn and our speaker and then after that we'll do an open Q&A. So by all means, please keep an eye on the chat and put your questions there. Our goal with this series is always to share insights, spark dialogue, and make more resources available to our global community. And as a reminder, every talk of this series is being recorded as the talks from the previous series, and everything will be up on our website soon after the session. So if you want to explore previous talks, you can just go to our website on the events page and you'll see the recordings. And also you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which has everything. So before we dive in, there's a couple of quick things that we want to share. So I'll pass the mic along to Lynn.
Sorry, I had like a internet connection hit, but here. And to finish our housekeeping, I just wanted to remind everyone to follow us on Instagram and sign up for our newsletter so you can be the first to hear about upcoming classes and events, just like this one. And if you'd like to support what we do, there's a couple ways to help. You can share our events with friends or colleagues who might be interested or make a donation through our website. I mean, I really mean it when every little bit helps us keep offering programs like this one. So no amount is too small. And with that out of the way, let's get started with today's event. We're really, really excited for our special guest, T. T, as you see here, is calling in at 4 a.m. from Australia. So really, we are really, really, really thankful, T, that you are here. T Ha is a Vietnamese UX and UI and type designer based in Narm, Melbourne, Australia. Did I botch that pronunciation?
No, that's good. Like
Okay,
North Melbourne.
okay. Thank you. Whose work focuses on creating digital experiences and developing Vietnamese localized typefaces. Her creative practice challenges traditional paradigms and defies Western-centric narratives by merging cultural identity, digital media, and typographic history into inclusive, context-rich designs. As a proud member of the Lu Chu and Counterforms collectives and a Malay Scholarship 2021 finalist, T continues to push creative boundaries while celebrating her cultural heritage. Currently, she is exploring why Cooper Black has become a national phenomenon in Vietnam. T, please join us on this virtual stage to chat about drawing Vietnamese diacritics. And for those of you in the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the Q&A function, or you can put it in the chat and we'll collect them for later on for the Q&A section. T, please take it away from us.
Can you see my screen?
Looks great.
Yeah, cool. I'm just gonna hide myself so that I don't really see myself. Yes. So yeah, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning to me as well. And thanks Juan and Lynn for inviting me to this talk. And thank you for your very kind introduction before as well. So my name is T Ha. Like you can see it's the letter T, or did I hide my video or did I weird?
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah, I wasn't sure if
Okay.
it was accidental.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah, just T like the letter T on the photo, or like ET in my background, one of my favorite movie as well. So yeah, let's dive in a little bit here. So as Lynn introduced me, my day job is a web UX UI designer that I make website, and I get to use font. And at night time, I learn to do type design and also helping type foundry and type designer with Vietnamese localization. Um, yeah. And this is a photo of my city. I was born and raised in Saigon, Vietnam. So you can see that this is like a neighborhood that near my house. With you can see that the side from the top is the side painting side, but on the bottom is the side that using like computer font. So it's a little bit of mix and match between the modern and also old style of side painting soft Chinese. So it's very interesting in terms of the typography in Vietnam. And also, like Lynn said before, I'm really curious of how Cooper Black become really popular in Vietnam. So you can see Cooper Black everywhere. And also on the secondary font, you can see that is Albertus as well. So quite interesting of how these get become so popular in Vietnam. But yeah, from this photo, oh, and also a place that I'm currently here, in Melbourne, Australia. So this is one of the suburb in Australia, in Melbourne, the Coast Greenbelt. It's a Vietnamese community area, and you can see that on the letter here with a little diacritic. Sometimes people have to draw the diacritics themselves, just so that people can understand that the Vietnamese letters. And also, if you look at the bottom, I'm not sure if you're familiar with phở, like one of the beef noodle of Vietnam. With a little bit of the horn kind of look like a comma and got tilted. And then the hook on top of the word phở just look like it just randomly dragged it from somewhere. So that's very interesting diversity of how Vietnamese typography is displayed across Vietnam and also in Australia. So from this photo, you can actually see that the current Vietnamese writing system is using Latin alphabet, but has our writing system always used a Latin script? The answer is not really. So let's take a little look back of the history of how we develop our writing system. So take the word sky, for example. So back then, we have the first script called what we call it scholar script, very Chinese-based script. And if you are familiar with Chinese, the word actually pronounced as tin, and tin in Vietnamese. And it was used by scholar, those educated people back then, but it wasn't not really populated that much, and not many people get to learn it and then understand this script. And then later on, we developed chữ nôm, which is also based on Chinese, based on the previous Chinese script, but then add a little bit of more strict and more based on the ideograph during 13th to early 20th century that it got used a little bit. But again, it's really hard for Vietnamese to learn and study the language. And then later on, when we colonized by French, we actually got our language is kind of got translated into Latin-based alphabet, what we call it currently call it chữ quốc ngữ, which means national script. So from the second chữ nôm and chữ quốc ngữ, we actually pronounce a bit similar, called trời. It means sky or heaven. So you can see that there's a little bit same thing for pronunciation, but in the way that we write, it's just a little bit like easier to understand. And so today it is called, we'll just focus on the last one, which is our official writing system that we use until now. So let's take a bit of, I would love to put this because I think it's quite easier to understand, but also if you want to know more about the history of Vietnamese typography, you can come to this website from created by Donnie Jung and his research on Vietnamese typography. So our current Vietnamese writing system is Latin based and it consists of 29 letters from 17 consonants and 4 vowels. And 22 letters is actually from the Roman alphabet that you can see in the current English alphabet as well, but minus the F, J, W, and Z. And then we add the modifier mark and create the modified letter. And then the order of these letters also just follow the same with the Roman alphabetic convention. So here is the alphabet that we use. And also adding the mark, which is, you can probably see a lot like similar with the photo from Copper Black before that I have with Sắc Huyền Họ Ngạn, which means a kill, rape, hookable, till, and dot below. So and then that combining with the modifier letters, we have the diacritical letter. So what's the difference that can the little mark make? Maybe we can take a little bit example. So you can, my last name is Ha, right? So here is, if I don't write it in Vietnamese without the diacritic, so it will just feel like ha ha ha. But when I add the mark in, it actually sounds very different. So it will be ha, 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 ha. So each of them, some of them will have meaning, but some of them don't. And sometimes you can combine with other letters to create a word that have meaning. So with the, for example, like ha, the fourth one, it's like ha, when you can say at the end of the sentence, or the last one ha, which also mean like summer in Vietnamese. So the mark, they are tiny but very mighty. And I want to go into why Vietnamese support matters. So let's have a look here. So I love food and I love going grocery shopping with my partner, and especially going to the Asian grocery and try to find Vietnamese letters. So in here, it's like the word mì phở, but you can see that the mark, like the hookable of phở, is actually the letter Z. In English, it could be because people don't really have Vietnamese font in the system, or when people print it out, so they try to find the other way to add the mark. And you can really see that the diacritic is on the end, not on the A, which is supposed to be the right grammar of that. And then here, the word thương ớt means chili sauce. It actually have to be the horn that kind of connect with the letter U and O. But here you can see that it's just like a comma that's flirting around. And same with the mark, the acute from the word, the second word here as well. It's just flirting mark, and it's kind of quite interesting of how other people, I would say, could be non-Vietnamese designing these. And another example why Vietnamese does matter. So I last year I did want to get my mom a Fitbit because she said, oh, I want to like check my heart rate and stuff. And I got it for myself first just to want to test it out and see whether it's really good to use. And this is how it displays Vietnamese. When my friend sent me a message, it just become like all the Vietnamese characters just become a tofu box with the rectangle and then the question mark inside. So you can't really like read it. And I posted on Twitter, which is X now. And 5 days after, they come back and actually change it, like making those letter replace it by the fallback font. If you look carefully here, like the O or like the A with the mark is actually in a different font, not the one that with the main font. So it's quite interesting that there's a way to show Vietnamese, but it's not really very unified or really good. And same thing here. So when I design website during the day, I use a tool called Userway to like testing accessibility. And in this tool, you can actually change in the language as well. But sometimes if you change it into Vietnamese, again, it becomes really funny with the fallback font. It's not really unified because the could be the font that used on the website doesn't support Vietnamese. So that's also one of the reasons I think Vietnamese support is quite important. And then the next one, I want to show something that is actually a little bit sensitive, but also not really popular or like people know about the issue currently, but it's actually this one. If you look at it, it's very familiar font, and it actually looks like Arch from Shopify. But when I go to the website of Shop, so this is Arch on Shopify website. But when I test the same page, it doesn't really support Vietnamese. So what's the reason for that? The reason is this actually called a Vietnamese version of Arch. And what Vietnamese mean, if you translate directly, it means Vietnamized version, which means it's the process of people modifying the typeface so that it could support Vietnamese characters by just adding or altering the diacritics. And sometimes these are often unofficial and could be a little bit illegal as well. But in the end, it's just someone trying to make the font that gets usable. So yeah, and then because of this, font piracy in Vietnam is still an ongoing thing that we haven't actually figured out how to solve it. And then font licensing as well is another whole topic that I heard one day that we discover a solution for it. But yeah, so those are the reasons that I think supporting Vietnamese diacritics are quite important. And also same with last week lectures. I think David mentioned that, but also you already know that Vietnamese is the 7th most spoken language in the world. So it's quite important to support Vietnamese diacritics. So I kind of have some step-by-step that adding Vietnamese diacritics in your type design workflow. And here I use Clip app. Not really a global font person. I tried it before and not really good at it. So here's just gonna be some of my steps that I use on Clip app to add Vietnamese diacritics. So the first step is start with something that already there. Like you can take the ref, the AQ, or even the tail. You can keep it at the same, or if you like something different, you can try differently as well. And the next one is the second step is there any missing one? For example, circumflex may not be included in your original design. You can add that in. And then the next step is adding anchor. So sometimes with Vietnamese letter, I add a different anchor to it instead of just the top. I call it something else like top Viet or top right and left, depends on which positioning that I want to use on for the mark. And then I move the mark or move the ankle around so that the mark get positioning right in the other in the position that I want. So you can see on the right hand at the bottom right, I have the ankle that you can click to it and then change into depends on the ankle you add. And then yeah, just move it around. So sometimes you can test it. So with Vietnamese, like a little bit hard. I think I forgot to mention before, but if because it's the stackable diacritics, so sometimes you won't really know which one is the best. So here I have two options of like the mark. So the acute could be on the right or the left. So it depends on after you testing it, you can change it back to what position you actually want and how the whole text string or paragraph work. And then after that, I add other marking with composite and component, and depends on the, again, same thing with the other one, depends on what positioning you think the best, you can update it. And then if you have an uppercase that you think that it's better to have a smaller mark or like can have with vertical alignment, you can adjust this as well. And then this is just optional. And in Vietnamese, we have the currency called dong. We don't really use it in daily life, but it's good to have. And then just test and tweak it or update any design that you think that need. The eighth step is the kerning part. I think this is the most crazy part or the hardest part that for Vietnamese character. So you can see here some of the kerning pair that I tried for my font. Like if you have the V and the I too, it's very problematic. Very hard to do a kerning really right. So sometimes I reduce the tail as well, like the length of it, so that it can fit under the V, or even the T. So you call it like the arm. So I think before I have very long arm of the T, but because of this, I kind of like update my base T, which is not really recommended, but because it's have to support Vietnamese, so I make it a little bit shorter so that I can actually try to fix the eye with the teal in it. But you can see it's still not really fitting here. So yeah, this is the most problematic phase in designing Vietnamese. And then next one is just test and roofing. So I recommend you to roof it out somewhere else, like InDesign or Font Roofer or any other tool that you can have, and print it out if you need, so that you can actually test it and have to see it in Power. And then the last step is be happy about it, or it can be optional whether you feel good or not about adding Vietnamese heritage. And these 10 steps kind of remind me of Korean skincare routine. Sometimes you don't really want to go through 10 steps, but it's good to go through 10 steps so that you can make your skin can be better, or your font can be better, or you can support Vietnamese better. Yeah, and here I have some examples of typeface that support Vietnamese. So the first one that I was really excited about is the Spotify mix by Dynamo, and the Vietnamese extension is created by Đức Cao, one of my typography collective member. I love music and also I love karaoke. So when they start supporting Vietnamese and Spotify, this is really good. I was so excited about it. And then Dynamo also start adding Vietnamese in their library as well. Like this is Diatype Global. They also do for other language script as well. And also Cream as well start adding Vietnamese in their library. Really good. And you can see here one of example of adding the horn in the serif for the U. It's always problematic for me because I'm not too sure whether whether it should be removing the serif or connecting it or where the horn could be. But I think this is really nice way of drawing the U horn. And then shortcut, not talking about Arch, but I think they done a really good job last year of launching the Omni Latin tool and also adding Vietnamese in their library. And then Ionic by Cotai recently also adding Vietnamese for their for Ionic as well. And then one of my most used or like my most favorite work sense by White Huan on Google Font. And then here is Ca Dao by Đam Cá Phạm. This is research during his master, and in his master he have researching of like the positioning but also the design that can help improving or like making Vietnamese character easier. So here with the D, like I said before with the kerning, he makes the top bar towards the left side so that it's not really aligned on the tail of the eye, which I think really nice as well. And then same here with the A and the tail, the A tail with the brief. So the tail is kind of shifting to the right so that it kind of not on top so that it's easier to read and improving the readability. And here one of my favorite one, Cô Yi Linh by Dong Trúc Nguyễn. She's researching on the handwriting and script of Vietnamese and how people actually write in Vietnamese and translate that into type design. So if you can see here, the top one is the actual fill with the letter U-horn and R-horn. But then at the bottom, the fill is actually how people normally write it. And then people write a bit quickly. So you're missing kind of the right part of it. So it just become like the hook but turning the other way. And then also here, she kind of connecting the horn with the body of the O. So I think it's really nice as well. And then the NG. So instead of rolling the G, she just connected with the N, and then that's how people actually, some people write in Vietnamese. So it's a really lovely typeface. And then the next one is BJR. So I really like this one when he localized the till for Vietnamese, but sometimes I think the till for Spanish, he gave it at like just a straight line of a horizontal bar, but because it will be hard for people to recognize in Vietnamese, so having the shape a little bit curved. So sometimes if you have it horizontally, it could become like rape or a kill like the other mark. So this is a really nice localized version of Vietnamese. And then here, one of the example that we saw a lot in Vietnam last year is the custom typeface of Baemin food delivery in Vietnam. And in here, the mark kind of shipping up and down and taking this vertical space of the letter. So the letter, you can see it a bit like shortened when it's stackable, and sometimes it's become bigger if there's no stackable mark. It could be a very interesting way to adding the positioning here. And then here, one of the example like Vietnamese, you don't really Vietnamese dialectic can be a little bit more interesting. So here, if you see like the circumflex, especially a triangle, and then with the horn, it's you can just be like a comma mark or just like a straight line as well. Or it can be like in crossword. So from one Kai Nguyen, he just presenting his project like yesterday. So if you're interested about it, check him out. Check his project out. So for me, drawing Vietnamese diacritic is also about making it work, legible, and also accessible for people, but also making it sing so that um, it's about all having fun designing a font that you like or designing Vietnamese diacritics that you want to add. Oh, I have this another meme that I think it's really nice that it picks boundary like Dynamo, Sharp, or Clean, adding Vietnamese support in the library. So can you as well? So any resource on drawing Vietnamese diacritics? The obvious one is Vietnamese typography by Donnie Chu. Um, I know some of you may have already know his website, but it's really interesting, very comprehensive about Vietnamese typography, the writing history of our writing system, but also some use case or some challenging that type designer might get in this designing dialectic Vietnamese. And also want a little bit promotion for my typography collective. So we archive the books that have Vietnamese and also showcases on the website. So if you have a chance to visit Ho Chi Minh or Saigon, please visit our library so you can see more of Vietnamese dialectics. Yeah, and then if you want, feel free to reach out. Not like feel free, but I mean, I'm sure that they will be very happy if you reach out to them and the Thai designer of Belgium in Vietnam so that they can help to review your font if you're not a native speaker. But yeah, and I promise this is the last one. So for me, font that support Vietnamese character is good, but if it can be the diacritics that the native speaker like me recognize easily is even better. And if it's like a really good one with proper positioning or cunning, that will be the best. So yeah, please, if you can try to add Vietnamese dialectics, we'll be very happy about it. Yeah, not, I would say more Vietnamese font, the better. Yeah, have fun drawing Vietnamese dialectics. And thank you for listening.
T, thank you so much. That was so awesome. And thank you so much for being so like comprehensive and thorough. Like it has been like an amazing resource and inspirational lecture. And yeah, Juan, I saw you unmuted. I'll let you take the mic.
Oh, yeah, no, I was saying it is amazing. Thank you, T. You answered pretty much all the questions I had. So,
Thank you.
but yeah, we also have some great questions in the chat. I don't know, Lynn, do you have any questions? If not, we can probably just go into the chat and then follow up ourselves in case, there are some comments.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions, so it's probably good to yeah, it's probably good to like go through the questions. And also there is a comment from Troy if we could please see the list of Vietnamese designers again. So maybe we can put that on the screen and then we can go through these other questions. T,
Yeah.
if okay.
And as a reminder, we're taking notes of all the links, all the shares, so we'll include it in the newsletter when we do a recap of this one and also announce the next one. Uh, but yeah, if you want to share the screen, or people can also like screenshot it on their phones and also share it on Instagram at typeelectus at Tiha. We can also spread the word. Let's get these people more work. All right, so we have some questions that are very technical. Maybe there's a quick answer to that. So the first question we got is from Troy, and well, the question is, in a super narrow typeface, is it okay to stack the acute on top of the circumflex, or rather to the left or right of it?
I think that's a good question. So, I mean, all the questions are good. So this one, it depends on like how narrow is your typeface. Um, so when people ask whether with the circumflex, whether I stack the IQ on right or left, I would say I refer it on the right because it's how we normally read from left to right, and it's also the way that we write as well. But it depends on like how or your other letter is like if you have the T, and then your RQ on the left, it could be a collide a little bit as well. So it's I would have to say like in context of how the whole typeface could look like.
Yeah. So yeah, you can consult T or people in the list to make sure that critics are legible. Thank you, T. That's a great answer. The next one is a little bit hard, but I don't know if you want to. You already talked about it. For the stackable diacritics, can you speak more to the anchors and positioning?
Yeah, I think I was a little bit quite fast in that area. But with the stackable diacritics is depends on how you want positioning your mark. But mostly, for example, I think the most problematic case for me is also the circumflex with the accurate rate, like how Troy asked before. With that case, I could have like sort of with the anchor top, I could have it either on the right or the left, and depends on when I do my test or like briefing, I will see which one is better. So yeah, again, it depends on the case. But I will test a little bit like to see when it's in like coning or any other situation that it could get a little bit more complicated. Then I will adjust the anchor, depends on that. But also keep in mind that if you have too many anchor, that will be crazy to manage as well. So the less the better. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Um, also, T, if there's like anything that you think would like require like more time than, the 20 minutes or so you have left, like there's also the option of like sharing something like retroactively as well. So I just wanted to put that
Oh
out.
yeah.
And also for those of you that are asking like if the lecture will be shared later on, like we will also upload it on our YouTube, so like if you missed a slide that like went away, you will definitely have it very soon, so don't worry about that as well. um all right, so perhaps like we can go to the next question, which is looking at the situation from the outside. I wonder if there's a sense of loss between the old writing system, which I consider to be much richer, and the current Latin system. Or perhaps it was so long ago, there's now complete acceptance. And I also wanted to point out that, like, um, Grant also had a question, like, which I think is related. Like, is it possible to decolonize the Vietnamese script by reconsidering its diacritics to transcend Western conventions? Like, I think those two questions are very interlinked. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that's another good questions that you have. So personally for me, I think the actual quite there's a loss between the old writing system and now. But in terms of like Latin alphabet, in terms of the new or like the current script that we use, we actually have some word that actually borrowing from Chinese word or like Chinese script as well. So I don't think that really have us like losing like the old writing system. It just in a different form. And also for me, I think Vietnamese is one of the greatest Latin adaptations as well, because the way that we doing and combining the word now is quite very interesting. Like if you have an A and you combine it an N, it becomes like a word and very like I'm not sure if you know much about Hangul as well. So when I study Vietnamese, when I understand Vietnamese and the way how the word and thing combine using the Latin alphabet, it's also helped me to I've learned Hangul in the same way with like the letter and combining, not really like complicated for me like English, if that makes more sense. But if I have a chance, I do wanna yeah explore more about the old writing system.
Yeah, thank you so much. And like, I mean, these are very, very big questions. So, like, yeah, anyway, thank you so much for your thoughtful response, T. Um, the next question is for proportions and sizing. Are there any other considerations for proportions and sizing, especially as you start to stack the diacritics, especially for non-Vietnamese speaking folks who aren't familiar with the shapes?
Yeah, so I guess it's again going back to the legibility and also the readability of how diacritics can be improving the reading experience. So with the sizing, I would prefer that the mark are a little big, but not too big that it like become more dominant like the base letter. But it's big enough for people if you read it like in the small size, especially in text typeface. Um, if it's like in the small size, it still can be readable and recognized. Um, and proportion, um, yeah, same thing with the sizing. So I think it depends on with typeface. So in terms of text, like it's easier to recognize, but if it's like display, you can be a little bit more playful, like the B and Daniel that I show where you can moving the height of the diacritic up and down. So yeah, if that answers the question.
I think the next question from Boom is actually very related to the response that you just gave. As
Mm.
a Thai, I've noticed that local readers have great flexibility in reading Thai typefaces, even when diacritics are incorrectly positioned due to technical issues. Is this similar in Vietnamese?
Yes. Um, yes. I guess it's like because we read, or for me, I reading word in like context. Um, so if you like the example of that I have before, where they have BHO and then with the Z, I still can recognize that's the word. But because of the way the whole word make more sense. Um, but if you have it like but it had to be like in context. So for example, that is the packaging of like the noodles, I would recognize the word. But if it's like in random where I want to understand what that means. So yeah, it's kind of similar, I guess.
Is there anything that you've seen where like it went like too far? Um, Like, have you ever seen where like, is there a line that you would be like, oh, like that went too far and people didn't recognize like what it was?
Yeah, so I think this recently I was on LinkedIn and Donny Chung post about font on Google that have the mark of Vietnamese type a little bit. It's not really accurately at the same position, so it's a little bit hard to read. So I think that could be one of the case. Mm.
We have also have a question in the chat about and this is also, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about like like kerning and spacing and obviously keywords to test when we're using this, where you're trying to expand your language support. So the question is if you, yeah, if it were possible to share usual or difficult to space words in Vietnamese, for people who are, want to have some sample text.
Yes, definitely. I can definitely send the link later on if that's okay.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I would say for people who need this right now, just go to Vietnamese typography. There's a lot of sample copy, poems, and text you can use to like text your typefaces.
yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like a string or keyword, whatever, kerning, all that stuff, all the fun stuff.
Yeah, like if I kind of like imagining like the crowd of folks who are like, we need this right now. Like they're so motivated by like
We're working as
by the
we're what
lecture. They're like, we got to start the right this moment.
Yeah.
Um. Also.
Um,
Oh yes. Sorry, T. I think I interrupted you.
oh no, that's all good. I was just reading this the chat. I know that you were saying some I think you were saying it's a bit heartbreaking if I said that we start using Latin script in the current writing system. Um, I think it's hard to go back to a little bit about our history and bit back then. So one of the reasons why it's kind of hard to keep like the traditional or like the Chinese rap is just because really hard for people to learn as well. And because Latin is kind of easier to, I would say, let's spread it, but it's easier for people to recognize and easier to learn. So that's why we using Vietnamese script more, the Latin based one more. Um, yeah, if that kind of answers what you were thinking in the chat.
Yeah. I mean, it's I mean, I feel like there's like a lot of like, oh, people are like, who? Because like, I mean, thank you so much, T, because like I feel like this is like one of those questions, like, and I say this as a non-Vietnamese person, who's like, oh, I want to ask this question, but like I don't know if it's like too overwhelming or so like, thank you so much for sharing all of your, I'm sure, very, very hard-earned knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, there's another question in the chat, also very technical, which still tells me that there's a lot of people who are interested in doing this, but maybe they're not either aware or there aren't that many resources, which I feel like are still being created. But the question is, in stack diacritics, is there a relationship between the spacing between the letters on the first diacritic and from the first diacritic to the stack diacritic? Like how, like should the stack ones be closer to each other than to the letter? Or how do you like think of the spacing in that sense?
I guess this is about the vertical spacing, is that correct? Um,
Yeah, like the
yeah,
two being closer
yeah,
to each other than to the,
yeah,
how do you?
yeah. Same thing again. It depends on the context, but with text typeface, we would prefer to have it a little bit more spacing so that it's not really become like a dot when you print it very in the smaller size. Also same with the other. I actually share my screen again. Is that more easier? Um,
Yeah, I think you're already sharing.
um. Oh yeah. Okay. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna go through all the slide. But one of the example that I had before of Kyle by Demka Pham. Can you see
Oh
here?
yeah.
Yeah, so here he, instead of having the marks like center or like on top, right on top of each other, is moving the tail a little bit to the right so that people can recognize that's still the tail. And when you actually print it in the smaller size, it's easier to recognize. Yeah, that answers the question.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's like, I think this is like amazing that a lot of people are like asking like how and like, Yeah.
Yeah, I know because even for me, I'm actually still learning about type design as well. So there's a lot of case that I actually don't really know much. Like recently, I started drawing a series of typeface, which was a nightmare before for me because it's crazy. And then adding italic to it, another crazy. So there's a lot of scenario that I haven't actually been through. So it's kind of questioning of again of the ability to reading Vietnamese of me as well. Because sometimes I have to like try not to know that it's not my typeface and kind of step in and become like the reader so that I understand whether the mark works or not. So yeah.
This is a question I have because since a lot of people are interested, like I'm just curious if you have in the past like taught a workshop on how to do this in a classroom setting, whether virtual or in person. Um, working with people's typefaces and sort of like guiding them towards the solution for their context, because obviously every typeface is different and people want to try new things, but sometimes you need the comfort of having someone who actually speaks the language and knows the forms. Have you done that yet, or is that something you're interested in doing, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I guess also doing type is very similar to do UI UX where you actually have to test to see the user experience or like the reader experience. So I think it's very similar stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Um, So I have another question about, you showed a lot of examples of like founders and designers expanding and trying new things. I guess more like a broader view, if you've seen like any trends in type design that could, affect Vietnamese typography, both positive or negatively, I don't know. But yeah, anything that you feel like it could impact or it's impacting the way we approach this?
Yeah. I would say like recently I have seen quite a bit of the thinner diacritics. Um, so for example, like some typeface that have like quite thicker stroke or like more thick contrast, but the diacritic is actually a little bit thinner. So it's kind of like adding a decoration to the typeface. So that's quite interesting. And then some of the typeface like Vietnamese typeface that influenced by side painting, which is really cool because I think because when you do side painting, I don't really do side painting, but when you do drawing or like lettering as well, you have your custom the way you draw the diacritics. And now when you translate that into type design, it's another story, but it's quite interesting to see a lot of like young designer kind of experiment with that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, we have another question that just came in from the chat. In the stacked diacritics, are they usually lighter than the main diacritics? For example, with the circumflex acute combination.
In the step diacritics.
Very technical question.
Sorry, we're
Yeah,
hopping back and forth. We're probably scrambling your brain.
yeah, hmm. Again, yeah, I think I will have to like try it out and see visually as well. Sometimes imagination is a different thing. But for me, with the step diacritics, I tend to trick it at this one diacritics. So they kind of like a partner in crime. Someone like you have to share the same anatomy or like the design or like in the stroke thickness. Um, it's not really like the base one, not really like a part of the letter, but more hand in hand with the stack version. Mm.
I do have a question that's also very technical, but I want to make it broad because one of the things that happens when people are expanding to Vietnamese language support from existing typefaces is that they encounter that the vertical metrics obviously are not made to account to the diacritics on top of the uppercase, and you've shown some very interesting examples that people have been doing, like making the uppercase smaller to fit the diacritics so that you don't have to change the vertical metrics. That said, when you're designing with Vietnamese in mind from the very start, you said those already from the beginning. So just curious about your relationship with vertical metrics as the type designer. Like, do you find yourself like when you're expanding, you're thinking about it right away and testing it? Even on the website you showed, right? The sensor, if the kids were like squeezed in to fit in, and yeah, just general thoughts about vertical metrics as it impacts Vietnamese typography and also Vietnamese type design.
Yeah, I actually haven't like encountered of that situation like as much before. And but I got like a lot of questions around that. Yeah. But I think one of the treatment that we mostly do is we kind of increase the light height when we do typesetting. So that you can keep same vertical metric if you want. But when we do typesetting Vietnamese, we try to typeset a little bit like have more space out than in English or yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing we tell. Yeah, change the line, change the line spacing. But then sometimes the acrylic get cut because the fonts are not
Oh
really,
yeah.
and that's also an issue. Um,
I mean, some things are, a design problem and not like a type problem. And sometimes it's like a culture problem, not a type problem. It's like the scale of things. Yeah, well, we are at top of the hour. T, is there like looking at all the questions, like is there anything that you would like to say just in regards to whatever? Like, I don't know if you have any like thoughts. It was like, oh, I wish like I had a chance to say this, or maybe I could comment on this, like anything.
Yeah. I mean for me, doing Thai but also adding Vietnamese dialectics is actually about having fun and making this work inaccessible for everyone else like to use. But there probably other part of Vietnam where I don't really understand the language of the people. So I hope that later on we have a chance to support the language. But yeah, that's Vietnamese is the first step that I hope that everyone get to experience and support in the pipe design.
Yeah, and for folks for folks who haven't like seen DJR's talk from last week, we also recommend that you like listen into that one as well if you're interested, because I think like he talks about more of a general like what is the character set that he like thinks is necessary for like the typefaces that he releases, and he has like a little section on Vietnamese, and kind of comes together very well from today. Well, also, T, is there anything that you want to plug? Any upcoming exciting things you have in mind? Any other, anything else?
Not really. It's like 4 a.m. the cafe now, so my brain is a little bit yeah. But I just hope everyone having fun with designing Vietnamese dialectics.
You're too humble. Thank you so much. I mean, it's just so, this is like just so much like, like, as I keep saying, like hard earned, like information and skill and expertise and knowledge. And, as you mentioned, like, I'm sure like your background as being a UI UX designer, like really melds in like navigating these, waters that a lot of people aren't comfortable with. And anyway, I don't know, just expressing a lot of my gratitude that you are here at 4 a.m. like sharing all of this. And thank you so much for being so generous with all your responses, for all the audience questions and everything as well.
Yeah, thank you for the amazing presentation as well. I think you covered everything very, very efficiently and very clearly, and it's going to be really useful for people who are going to watch this in the future. And also, the resources are great, and the people you were plugging, I think those are amazing. Thank you, T.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming and have a good weekend.